Hey guys, welcome to Sketchaday. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have no idea who I am, I'm Spencer and I love to draw. I'm a designer, I've been doing this for about 10 years. And we're gonna draw today a blender. Why are we gonna do that? Well, you guys sent in a request. It was actually a request on Instagram. I love when you comment, so be sure to comment below, hit me up, slide into them DMs, all that good stuff. But most importantly, whether you're new or not, make sure you hit subscribe and turn on those alerts. And be sure to check out my newsletter. I'll post all that information below in the description. So, like I said, today we're going to be sketching a blender, and we're going to be using Papermate Flare, felt pens, and tracing paper. If you don't have that, that's okay. Doesn't really matter. Just grab whatever you have and follow along. So with that, let's get to it. So with a blender, what I'm really thinking of here is something along the lines of this, where we've got two almost inverted pyramid shapes on top of each other. You know, this could either be a circle from the top, it could be a square. We don't really know, but we can decide. So it's always helpful to sketch something like a top view. And then you can decide, okay, there's a handle here, so I need to sketch that handle in my side view, and there's probably a base of some sort to this. And let's say there's maybe some sort of control deck and feet, cable, all that good stuff, spout, and a lid. Okay, pretty simple. On the lid, let's say we have something circular like so. There's our spout, and you can continue to do this. If we wanted to do another view, that's the side view. We'd have maybe the spout here, and it gives us a chance to kind of thumbnail out what this control area might look like. So whether it's some sort of screen and buttons or whatever, we can decide that later. But most importantly, what I'm going to do is now establish kind of my point of view. And because this thing is kind of tall, what I want to do is start fairly shallow on the top, like so. And by the time we get to the bottom, have a much more exaggerated perspective. Now, like I mentioned, there's a base, so I'm just going to drop that line in for reference and start to sketch in the shape of what this vessel might look like so. I'm going to jump up a little bit for the base itself on the vessel, and then with just a couple curved lines here, kind of set up this motor base, as well as round these corners like so. And we have our handle. If we draw a line from front to back, then I can use that line to then sketch in the handle like so. And we also need to make sure that we capture the spout as well as the top. So like I said, the top, we have these ellipses that are going to kind of be the plug for the top of this blender. We also have our spout here that we can sketch in like so. And with the right offset, just a little bit on this edge, we're going to keep this as a rough sketch, but just showing you the mechanics of how I think about this. And on the inside here, we can now sketch the blade, draw through a little bit to get the bottom of this blender in place. You can see the handle probably coming through and meeting up with this vessel because it is clear. And for the blades, let's put a little ellipse. Now the blades, depending on the blender, you may have 4 blades, 2 blades, all that good stuff. 2 are typically up like that, 2 are typically down. So for the 2 that are up, what I'm going to do is offset this ellipse, have a point here, a point there, and now I can draw 2 things that look like a blade, not perfect. And then for the ones down here, just 2 points like so. And now I have the base like so. A couple little contour lines. I'm just going to make this dark black. And part of the reason for that is it does obscure a few things. and it helps simplify the drawing just a little bit. So just like that. And I've changed my mind. Instead of a rectangular control spot, I want to just do a knob. And so the reason I'm doing this is this surface is on an angle, okay? And if it's on an angle, we need to make sure that we draw our ellipse the right way. So drawing this square first allows me to kind of set up how this ellipse would be on the front. Maybe offset a little bit there, and some sort of indicator like so. And let's shade in the base of our blender. And we'll have a little bit of fun with markers here as well. But I just wanted to get that in. All right, a little hatching here on the side. Shade that in, contour line, and we had our feet on the blender. So just by adding these darker spots, it suggests that there's some feet. Project over, maybe get a shadow. Sometimes I like to come up and then add a background, especially since this is transparent. It can kind of help reinforce the transparency of the object. All right, so our lid needs to have some thickness, so I'm just going to add that right there. All right, so I mentioned having fun with marker. So what I mean by that, on the tracing paper, I'm going to flip this over. I can tell the sketch is a little bit off, but we're going to roll with it. Just on the edges of this vessel, shading it with the marker, like so, maybe on the bottom as well. Being careful to avoid the blades. And what I'm doing here is creating an outline for these clear plastic parts, because in the corners you're going to get a bit of artifacting, occlusion, and opaqueness happening. For the lid itself, I'm going to use a darker gray, and we'll come back on the front as well. We'll come back on the front as well and make this a little bit darker, but just shading in kind of the lid, like so, the base on the far side. And then for the actual bottom here, let's go with a red. And again, we're shading on the back side of the tracing paper, so this way we have a bit of flexibility with value. Okay, but just keeping it fresh. That's the most important thing. All right, so now when I flip that over, you can see it kind of comes in at a half value. And now I can come in, add a bit more where I need it, like so. Tracing paper does behave a little differently, so you're going to have to play with it and figure out what works for you. But just to call out that the marker won't actually absorb into the paper as much as it does with regular paper, so that's something you want to watch out for. All right, so like I mentioned on the front, we're going to make this just a little bit darker in some spots. But with the gray being as light as it is, you get a sense for that transparency or translucency on the front of this blender. A couple little hatch marks here, perhaps for volume level indication. We got our plug. Let's shade in the top a bit more. I'll just leave a little white space. And there we go. So there's our quick sketch of a blender on tracing paper. Hopefully you're able to pick up some good stuff here. I certainly had fun, and I'd love to even see your versions of this. I know this isn't perfect, but the most important thing is just to get moving, get drawing, and be excited about it. Well, thanks for joining us here on Sketch a Day. As a reminder, hit subscribe, turn on alerts, come find me on the socials, and we'll see you next time right here on Sketch a Day.